What is up, Panthers Nation? It is Aaron Duncan here, back again with another video, and we have breaking news that we have to discuss. The Carolina Panthers have made an offer, whatever that means, to Scott Fitterer to be the GM, the new GM, that is, in replacing Marty Hurney as the general manager of the franchise. Now, but I want to talk about what exactly this hire means for the franchise going forward and the future of this whole program, because I know I made a video with the offseason preview where I talked about this was the most crucial offseason in franchise history. And I wasn't playing around because Marty Hurney was the longtime GM. The Panthers have only been a team for 26 seasons. Marty Hurney had been a GM for 20 of them. So he had a big impact on this program. So going on without him, it was going to be big to see how the future of this goes with new owners, new coaches, and now a new GM. But before we get all into the dirty details, my name is Aaron Duncan, and this isn't necessarily bluntness sports talk. On this channel, I do content, videos, analysis, film breakdowns, all kind of stuff, just like this video today, where I break down the Panthers along with the NFL also every now and then too. So if you're a fan, make sure you hit that subscribe button, man, because I'm bringing this heat. So I welcome you to join the channel, and make sure you hit the notification button, the bell icon. That way you know every time I drop a video, because if you don't hit the bell icon, you may not get notification when I do the video. So make sure you do that. And one last thing, give the video a thumbs up, man. It doesn't cost you anything, and it really helps my video out in the algorithm with the engagement and whatnot with YouTube. So make sure you give this video a thumbs up. But yo, real quick, down below in the comments, let me know how you feel about this hiring of Scott Fitterer as the new GM of the team. You know what I'm saying? I know we interviewed a lot of guys, but I want to know what you guys think about us finally getting our GM, Scott Fitterer, from the Seattle Seahawks. Let me know that below in the comments. However, let's talk about it, man. Former co-personnel director of the Seattle Seahawks, Scott Fitterer. I guess that's how you pronounce his name, Fitterer. Whatever. He is the new guy. He's the big boy. He's the head person in charge. Now, is he the head person in charge? Because we know how long this process took. Like, we literally interviewed 15 potential candidates for this GM position. Now, I know I stressed how crucial this offseason was, and I'm all about making the right decisions. Cool. But interviewing 15 different guys seems a little bit OD to me. They literally interviewed everybody for the GM position except me. You know, I was surprised I didn't get a call. They were interviewing so many different guys, so I'm surprised I didn't get a call. You know what I'm saying? I made my little video saying what the GM should do when I talked about this offseason plan. So I thought they might have saw that. I thought they might give me a call, invite me for the Zoom meeting, because I guess the reason why they interviewed so many guys initially is because they were doing it over Zoom. They didn't have to worry about flying these guys out in person. So they wanted to cast a wide net, but this was a stupid wide net. And they narrowed it down to 4, and those 4 guys, they brought them in for an interview. You know, Scott Fitterer only came in this past Monday for an interview on the Zoom call, but then they brought him in Wednesday for the second interview in person. He was the last one out of those 4 to be interviewed, and apparently he left a great impression because they extended the offer. And for me, I was just tired of the whole process, because as long as the GM wasn't going to be Marty Hurney, I really could care less who it was going to be going forward. I just wanted to get it over with. It had been so long and drawn out. I was getting tired. You saw I didn't make any videos about all the potential GM candidates because they just added up too much for me, and I was just like, I'll just wait till the guy gets announced and I'll react to it. So that's what I'm doing now. And so it really made me wonder what took this process so long to happen. You know, I know David Tepper is a new owner in the NFL, and Matt Rhule is a first-time head coach, is going into his first full offseason. And I know David Tepper stressed about having everybody on the same page. But reports came out that Tepper and Matt Rhule were on different pages when it came to this interview process. Some people were saying that David Tepper, obviously, he's the numbers-driven guy. He wants to go by analytics and get an analytic-driven GM. But Matt Rhule is more concerned about getting a guy that can just has an eye and his ability to scout talent. So they're on 2 different pages. You know, Matt Rhule wanted the more practical football guy, and David Tepper looked like he wanted the numbers guy and equations guy, trying to bring more of, I guess, a baseball or NBA element to it when it comes to the scouting. So they were on 2 different pages. And with the hiring of Scott Fitterer, it tells me that Matt Rhule pretty much got his way. And David Tepper is not like Jerry Jones as much as I thought he was, because he seemed to be meddling a lot for an owner. And it gave me Jerry Jones vibes, where the owner is too much involved in the football stuff instead of letting his football guys handle the football stuff. So for him to kind of relinquish and kind of give into what Matt Rhule desired, it was a pretty good sign for me. You know, I've been very skeptical of David Tepper thus far as an owner, but for him to actually do that, it's a sigh of relief, because I know we're not dealing with the Dan Snyder like the football team, and I know we're not dealing with the Jerry Jones, you know what I'm saying, with the Cowboys that pretty much calls all the shots and pulls all the strings and kind of holds the program back himself. And maybe this conflict between the owner and the coach is really what made us have to go through so many candidates, and we were looking so much for the perfect guy, and we had these standards that we wanted these guys to meet. But I kind of look at it like the dating life. Sometimes men, we're not always perfect, but women have these high standards that they want in their mate, and sometimes they go through a lot of people. They date a lot of people. They go through a lot of guys and figure out that most of these guys aren't great. They all look the same. And sometimes your standards are just too high that you don't find the perfect guy. You just got to find the guy that's perfect for you. Hopefully Scott Fitterer is that guy and he'll be the perfect mate for this program going forward. But it just gave me vibes that we were being very picky and wasn't really sure what we were looking for. But we had certain standards that certain guys needed to meet and they just weren't. So I don't know what was going on with that. But I will say the conflict between David Tepper and Matt Rhule that they talked about with different philosophies, it is something to pay attention to and look on down the line, because from what we're hearing and what I suspected, Matt Rhule is probably going to be more the de facto GM in the stance where he's going to have the final say-so on the 53-man roster. This hasn't been officially stated by the team, but reports have come out from some Panthers beat writers that say this is the way it's going to be. Matt Rhule is going to have the final say-so on the 53. It's more going to be up to Scott Fitterer to find the talent and agree to the money, figure out how the money works when it comes to the future of the program. And this is kind of unique for a situation for a football team because not too many coaches have that much power, except Andy Reid and Bill Belichick in the NFL. What's the common denominator? Because Matt Rhule, Andy Reid, and Bill Belichick, one of these things are not like the other. Two guys are Hall of Fame coaches with Super Bowl rings. One coach is just highly paid and inexperienced on the NFL level. He has experience building programs, but only at the college level. So giving him this much power could make you a little bit suspect, because we've seen guys that come from the college ranks as coaches that they give the power to get the guys they want in their system, and it not necessarily work out. Look at Bill O'Brien, who just got fired after he traded DeAndre Hopkins and traded all these picks to the Dolphins. And look at Chip Kelly, who pretty much set the Eagles back 2 or 3 seasons by him wanting to have Sam Bradford and Nick Foles as his quarterback. And it was a mess from there. He ended up getting fired down the line. So having these college guys, even though they know what they want and wanting to give them all this power, doesn't always necessarily work out. So it'll be interesting to pay attention to how this thing kind of pans out with Matt Rhule being the one pulling all the strings. So who exactly is the Panthers' new GM, Scott Fitterer? Because he has some history with the team that he just came from, the Seattle Seahawks, where he had been there since 2001. And he worked his way up and climbed the ladder until he became the head honcho in charge of player scouting and college draft picks. Now, obviously, John Snyder was the general manager, and he gets a lot of the credit for the Seahawks program being turned around under Pete Carroll. But you got to give Fitterer some credit. So let's highlight some of his most valued draft picks, because he's been able to make some moves and get the most out of these guys. Like Richard Sherman, who's probably going to be a Hall of Fame cornerback, was a 5th-round draft pick under the Seahawks when Scott Fitterer was there. Then you have Bobby Wagner, who is arguably the best middle linebacker in the league. He was a 2nd-round pick. Russel Wilson, who is on his career path to a Hall of Fame quarterback, he was a 3rd-round pick, who a lot of people underrated because he was so short, but they saw the talent and they saw what Russell Wilson had in him, and they were able to get him in the 3rd round. That is great value, especially for a franchise quarterback. Defensive end Frank Clark was a 2nd-round draft pick. Tyler Lockett, one of their better receivers on the team, was a 3rd-round draft pick himself. He was a little undersized coming out of college, but they were able to get him, and he's been tremendous, and him and Russell Wilson have great chemistry. And last but not least, the most recent is getting DK Metcalf in the 2nd round, the human freakazoid at wide receiver, who a lot of people slept on because of his injury and his neck, but they ended up getting great value for him at the end of the 2nd round. And we see DK is already making his way up, climbing the ladder to be a top 15 wide receiver in this league. So he has a history of getting great return on investment when it comes to draft picks. And that's what I like the most about him, because we know with Marty Hurney, he was great at drafting when we were in the 1st round and high up in the draft picks, because he picked guys like Cam and Julius Peppers and Luke Kuechly, Thomas Davis, guys like that. But his later round draft picks really ended up being mostly draft busts. And we really only got top heavy. Yeah, he got some Hall of Famers out of those top 1st-round picks, but none of those late guys ever materialized. It looks like with Scott Fitterer, he has an eye for talent to the point that we'll be able to fill the roster with starters even later in the draft, where you can get guys like Richard Sherman, an all-pro corner in the 5th, or Russell Wilson, the franchise quarterback for the next 15 years, in the 3rd round. Because with the amount of holes on this Panthers roster, every draft pick is going to be crucial, especially since we don't have a ton of cap space to work with to acquire free agents. But even though he wasn't the head guy in charge in Seattle, he also was fairly aggressive when it comes to the trade market. You know, he made some moves to trade for guys like Jadeveon Clowney, Jimmy Graham at one point, and most recently trading for Jamal Adams from the New York Jets. Now, what exactly they gave up to get all these draft picks can be debated, but the fact that they were actually being aggressive and making moves is way different compared to what the history of the Panthers organization has been when it comes to acquiring players and acquiring talent. So how is Scott Fitterer going to fit in with this Panthers program and work with Matt Rhule having the final say-so and then being in coordination with David Tepper? Because they definitely had plenty of success in Seattle, but even though you can have a good GM or a good guy with an eye for talent, you still have to be able to get the most out of that talent. And that's what Pete Carroll was so good at, which is why you see second, third, fourth, and fifth rounders becoming all-pro and Hall of Fame caliber players. Pete Carroll had that culture in place. He had the eye to put guys in the best position to succeed, and he trusted his players and gave guys chances to be great and made it competitive to the point that they got better. So Matt Rhule is definitely going to have to do his part, even if Scott Fitterer brings in some of the most talent that this team has ever had. So you still got to put it together with the X's and O's. And Matt Rhule still has yet to prove himself in that aspect. He has the resume from college, but he's still trying to prove himself on this next level in the NFL. So I'll be paying attention with the keen and skeptical eye to see how Matt Rhule does. And I'm glad we finally got this move out the way, because with the Panthers being announced that they're going to be coaching one of the teams at the Senior Bowl, it can be advantageous to have that inside track, because with an abbreviated college football season and everybody not having a full season of game tape, you're going to need a good scout to be able to look at some of these players. And being at the Senior Bowl gives you a chance to be hands-on, get to talk to these guys, meet these guys, see if they fit your culture and what you're about, see if they are coach and they're coachable guys, and see if they can take instruction. The only downside is that we don't have a coaching staff. So even though we have the head guy in charge, the GM and the head coach, knowing what they're looking for, we don't have a coaching staff. And even if we fill the coaching staff up within the next, 10 days before the Senior Bowl happens, they're not going to be on the same page. You know, Matt Rhule is going to want to get his guys, but how much on the same page are they going to be about? Because let's say you get some assistants from other places in college. Do they know you? Do they know what you're trying to accomplish in the NFL? Do they know what you need to be looking for at these Senior Bowl practices? So being behind the 8 ball when it comes to losing coaches and finally getting a GM, you can end up wasting an opportunity being at the Senior Bowl. And like I said earlier, I really didn't mind who got this job as the general manager, because I was just pretty much happy that we moved on from Marty Hurney. Anybody else was just going to be a bonus for me. I just wanted to see what this hiring process was going to be like with so much inexperience with David Tepper and Matt Rhule. And ultimately, who was going to end up having that final say-so? Was it going to be a GM that wanted to call all the shots? Or was it going to be a guy that was kind of 50-50 with control, with Matt Rhule having the final say-so? And that's exactly how it turned out. They wanted to tell us that Matt Rhule wasn't a de facto GM, but it looks like even though he's not, he's going to be calling most of the shots. And that's what I really wanted to learn about this hire, and that's exactly the message I got from this. But Matt Rhule definitely has the keys from David Tepper to the franchise, but does Matt Rhule have too much power? You know, like I said, I told you about the conflicts about some of these old college coaches. So let me know down below in the comments, do you think Matt Rhule has too much power on this team? Because it seems like if the ball's in his court, and it's going to be up to him to drive us in the right direction. So let me know if you think he has too much power. But without further ado, I'm Aaron Duncan signing off from the Necessary Blunt Sports Talk. Make sure you guys are subscribed to the channel, and I'll see you next time. Peace.